Peace, ladies. Welcome back to the Modern Goddess channel. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing with you 3 things that you may be doing unintentionally that's coming across as argumentative or combative. This is something that I hear a lot of women say, that their men accuse them of being disagreeable or competitive or argumentative when they really don't know what they're doing wrong. And even if you know that you do the things that I'm going to mention in this video, if you don't understand why it's a problem, you're going to keep doing it, which is going to keep causing the same conflict, right? So hopefully this will help. And what I'm going to be sharing with you today is kind of a preview of some of the things that we're going to be talking about in our upcoming group sessions. They're all about communication. So if you want to sign up for any of those classes, you can visit my website, sarahlenacoaching.com, to do so. So let's get into it. The first one, you have to have a basic understanding of the difference between someone with a more masculine mindset and the way a person who operates from a more feminine energy thinks. People that tend to be more masculine often see things in black and white, or right versus wrong, and there is no in between, right? Sometimes they're not as open to other people's perspectives, and it can be kind of frustrating at times because it seems like they're being kind of single-minded or they're being kind of stubborn, right? Understand though, ladies, that this is necessary for a person that's in a leadership position, because you don't want somebody that is easily influenced or that is easily swayed and weak-minded, right? So sometimes it's important for a leader to be able to stand firm on his beliefs, his principles, what he thinks is right. Now, a person who operates more from a feminine energy has a desire to see things from multiple perspectives. They want to understand this person's view and this person's view, and if there's a third or fourth view, they want to understand that as well. So sometimes they have the mindset of, why can't both be right? Why can't all of it have some validity in it? Why does only one person have to be at fault? And sometimes it can become a problem when they don't just say this is right and this is wrong. Men do get upset about that, but that is not why I say this is something that you need to understand. The reason why this comes across as argumentative to men, let's say that he makes a statement and he says it with conviction. He feels very strongly about his view, his point of view. You hear what he says and you do not disagree with him at all. You completely understand his perspective. At the same time, you understand alternate perspectives. You understand an opposing view. And so in your mind, you might be thinking, well, this is going to be a very thought-provoking conversation. Let me share this alternate perspective and we'll have a nice stimulating exchange about it. But when you do that, you find that he gets a bit irritated by it. He gets frustrated because to him, it's not a friendly exchange. To him, you're just being disagreeable. You're going against him. Why is it that you always got to go against everything I say? Like that type of energy, right? Now, this isn't to say that you can't share your opinions or that you can't think for yourself or that you can't disagree with him sometimes. That isn't to say that. It usually becomes a problem when you do so during times where he's looking for support or when he feels like you're going against what is morally correct. Right? So I'm going to give you a couple examples so you can have an understanding of what I mean. Let's say someone says or does something to him that he feels was disrespectful, or he just really upset about whatever that person said or did to him, right? And he is sharing that with you. You hear what he's saying and you're thinking, you know what, you're absolutely right. They should not have done that. They are wrong. Then you pause and you think, at the same time though, you know, if you were to put yourself in their shoes, you know, I can kind of understand why they would do blah, 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 right? So that does seem like you're being disagreeable, even though you may not be wrong. It's like you're challenging his thought process in a time that he's looking for support, right? So that's one example. Another example is it could be something that has absolutely nothing to do with him, but maybe he can somewhat relate to it, or it is a reflection of his moral compass. So I'll give you one that I hear couples argue about all of the time. If you ever seen that Tyler Perry movie Acrimony with Taraji P. Henson, she stars in it, right? Let's say the man watches that movie and he's like, man, she was wrong for that. She was tripping. There's no reason for her to do all of that. And he gives his explanation as to why he was completely against the way she handled that situation, right? Now, as a woman, you may hear that and you might think, yeah, she was doing way too much. She was wrong. At the same time, though, you know, she did hold him down all those years, and she put up all this money, and she couldn't have a baby because of him, or whatever. Those of you who've never seen the movie, you're probably gonna be a bit confused about what I'm talking about, but those of you who have seen it, you know what I'm talking about, right? So a man might hear that and think, well, if you agree that what she did was wrong, why are you trying to justify her behavior? Why are you even trying to make sense of something that you know is morally wrong, right? And so that to men becomes argumentative. It becomes competitive, because to them they're not understanding why you're going against them in the first place, right? When you agree with him. So to you, again, it might just be, this is a thought-provoking conversation. We're just sharing alternate perspectives. He does not view it that way, right? So be mindful, ladies, of the type of conversation you're having. If you see that he's in a light mood, then yes, do that. It's fine. I think couples should have mentally stimulating conversations where you're challenging each other every once in a while, right? However, if he feels very strongly about it, or if it's something that's going to be a reflection of your mentality, or any of those types of conversations like that, sometimes it's best to just not say anything at all. Like, you know what, King, you're right. I get your point. You know, I see where you're going with that. That makes sense, right? And just let it go. It's not worth it. So basically just use your discernment. The second one that you may be doing and not realizing why it's a problem is when you answer rhetorical questions with the personal reality as opposed to the common reality, or if you answer rhetorical questions with the exception instead of the rule. I personally do not like rhetorical questions at all for several reasons. But one reason for sure is because my personal reality is nowhere near close to the common reality. It just isn't, right? And so what will happen is a man may ask you a question, right? It's a rhetorical question. And we all know rhetorical questions, the point of them is for him to try to explain something to you through a question. Right? He's trying to get you to understand something. So a man has already thought it through. In his mind, I'm going to ask this question. She is going to give this answer because there's just one correct answer. And so once she gives this one correct answer, then I'm going to drive the point home by saying this, and then she'll understand, right? But when he asks a question and then you answer with something completely different than what he was looking for, it takes it off into another path and he can't make his point. And so men will get frustrated. Like, oh, now you're being a smart aleck. And you're sitting there like, what? You asked me a question and I answered the question honestly. Why are you getting upset? Right? So the thing is, being able to answer it with the common reality or with the rule, not the exception. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. And I'll use myself as an example. Something that I hear men say a lot, you know, they'll use when they're talking about being submissive or being cooperative or being compliant or anything like that, they'll often use a woman's job and her boss as that example. I have even done that with my clients, but I don't do it in the form of a rhetorical question. I just make it a statement because, you know, I don't ask rhetorical questions. But they'll say, well, you know, if your boss told you to do this, if your boss asked you to do X, Y, Z, you do it, right? Or what would you do? Now, most women will answer that, well, yeah, I would do it because that's my job. And, you know, that's where I get paid and stuff. That has never been true for me, ever. And it's not because I was like rebellious at work or just difficult or defiant or anything like that. But I was always very privileged at work, and that was my personal reality as an employee, right? Either I was in a position of administration myself, which gave me a lot of freedom, or I got along very well with management, so I was showing a lot of favoritism. I did not have to follow the rules. If I didn't wear the uniform, I did not get written up. If I came in 30 minutes late, fine. If I came back from break an hour late, if I was in a part of the building I didn't need to be in, like, it was fine. Like, I even had boss pull me to the side after him getting multiple complaints about me one time, and he was like, look, I'm only saying this to you because I have to tell them that I said something to you, but if you're gonna do this, then at least make sure they don't see it, because I'm tired of them complaining to me. Like, That's the type of stuff that was my reality, right? The same thing when men ask rhetorical questions and they'll use like the police or the cops or something. They'll be like, well, if the cop told you to do this, you would do. And I'm like, depends on the cop. Because so I don't answer rhetorical questions because my personal reality is not the same as a common reality, especially for a man. A man will never know what it's like to be a woman, and I will never know what it's like to be a man. So that's why I really don't like rhetorical questions. But one of the things that I have learned, if it's something where I feel like I absolutely need to answer it or it's going to turn into a fight, I'll say, well, what I know most people would do is XYZ. Or I'll ask, would you like to answer based off of what I would do or based off of what I know most people would do, what the average person would do, right? And when you do that, it doesn't make it seem like you're trying to be a smart aleck. It doesn't seem like you're trying to be argumentative or combative, which again, you're just telling the honest truth based off of what you would actually do. But men, they don't understand that because that's not their reality. They think there's only one correct answer to this question. So yeah. Another thing with the rhetorical question, like I said, when you answer with the exception instead of with the rule, let's say a man gives you a scenario, just a random scenario, and he's like, well, if there are two men standing in the street and one of them starts yelling and cursing and he's barking at the other one and he's doing all this in front of the other guy's face, you know, type of scenarios guys use, right? What do you think the other guy's going to do? Like, how do you think that's going to play out? Now, you may have actually seen a situation where a man was yelling in another man's face and the other guy just stood there calmly. He just waited and he was like, I'm not going to throw the first punch, or I'm not going to get out of character for this guy unless he puts his hands on me. You may have actually seen that. But if you answer with that, it's probably going to turn into an argument because that is the exception. That is not the rule. The rule is, if that were to happen in the street, it is more than likely going to turn into a physical altercation, right? So again, rhetorical questions, either answer with the common reality or answer with the rule, not the exception, all right? The third one that you may be doing that you don't realize why it's coming across as you being combative or argumentative or disagreeable is when you respond to only the things that you disagree with and you feel like you have to correct that statement. I'll give you an example. I'll give you another example. Let's say that your man is talking to you about something you did that bothered him, and he gives the backstory. He goes, you know, well, last week we were on the phone and I remember because you were sitting in your car outside of your job because you had just gotten off of work, right? And I was telling you what you did and you didn't say anything. I hung up the phone and then you called me back. And then when you called me back, you apologized, but then you tried to turn it around on me, right? That's his story. That's what he said. Now, if you hear him say that, and your response to that is, well, actually, I wasn't outside of my job because I was off that day. I was sitting outside of the gas station when you called me. And that did not happen last week. That actually happened like 2 days ago. So it's like you're correcting unnecessary, irrelevant details that have nothing to do with the point. The point was, you were silent when he expressed his concern, and then when you did finally apologize, you were deflecting, right? That was the point. So when you are listening to a man give backstories, which a lot of time they do when they're expressing their concern, they'll try to tell you everything that they believe happened from their memory. You're going to hear inaccuracies. Men do that all the time. And I know a lot of times they think that they don't, but they do. They make a lot of inaccuracies when they're trying to prove a point. If you pause them to correct them, it is going to turn into an argument. Because in your mind, you might be thinking, well, if you're going to say this, say it right. He doesn't have to say it right if it has nothing to do with the point. Just focus on the point. None of that other stuff matters. What difference does it make if it happened 3 months ago or 2 seconds ago and you were sitting on a bus sitting outside of the park? It doesn't matter. The point is the point. And so when you only focus on what you disagree with and you go in trying to correct it just because you want the story to be 100% accurate, then yeah, it's going to come across as you being argumentative, even if that is not your intention, right? So these are 3 things that are very common. Again, the first one is you kind of playing devil's advocate because you have the ability to view things from multiple perspectives, and you're sharing that thinking you're about to have a thought-provoking conversation and he's just not in the mood for that, right? Or 2, you are answering rhetorical questions just with your personal reality or with the exception and not the rule. Or 3, you are correcting unnecessary details that have nothing to do with the point, or you're listening only to and responding only to the things that you disagree with, right? So hopefully this helps. If you notice that you do any of these things, start making the necessary adjustments now. And again, if you are interested in learning more about these types of things, you can sign up for any of my upcoming group sessions by visiting sarahlenacoaching.com. Thanks for watching. Peace and much love.